I never thought I'd watch my family break into my house through a security camera. But there they were, Mom, Dad, and my sister Emma, fumbling with what looked like copied keys at my front door. Mom's voice came through crystal clear on the footage. "Once we're in, it's ours. She has no real claim to anything anyway. She's not even our blood." The irony was almost laughable. They had no idea I was the one who'd bought this house 6 months ago when they'd fallen behind on payments. They didn't know I was the anonymous buyer who'd kept them from being homeless. The same person they kicked out 2 years ago because I wasn't really family. Let me back up. I'm Sarah, 28, and until 2 years ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I was adopted at birth, raised alongside Emma, their biological daughter, who's just a year younger than me. Growing up, there were always subtle differences in how we were treated, but I convinced myself it was all in my head. Mom would spend hours helping Emma with her homework while telling me to figure it out myself. Dad would praise Emma's mediocre achievements while barely acknowledging my academic excellence. But I kept trying, kept proving myself, kept hoping they'd see me as their real daughter. I worked through college, saved every penny, invested wisely, and built a successful career in real estate investment. Meanwhile, Emma floated between jobs, relying on her parents to cover her expenses. They never hesitated to help her, draining their savings and retirement funds to support her lifestyle. The breaking point came during what should have been a routine family dinner. Emma had just quit another job, claiming it wasn't fulfilling enough. Mom and Dad were sympathetic, of course. Then Emma dropped her bombshell. "I'm thinking of going back to school," she announced. "Maybe get my master's degree." Mom beamed. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We'll figure out the tuition somehow." I couldn't help but point out the obvious. You're still paying off her undergraduate loans. How can you afford another degree? The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's face twisted into that familiar sneer she reserved just for me. "Not everyone has to be a workaholic with no life like you." "At least I pay my own bills," I shot back. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough. We support each other in this family." "Really?" I laughed bitterly. "Because I don't remember anyone supporting me through college. I worked 3 jobs while Emma got a free ride." Mom's face hardened. "We did the best we could with what we had." "No," I corrected her. "You did the best you could for Emma. I was just the backup child, right? The one you got before you could have your real daughter." The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma's eyes widened with mock innocence. While she's not wrong about not being real family. "Emma," Mom's protest was weak, performative. "What? We all know it's true. She's not our blood. She's just some stranger's kid you took in." I waited for them to defend me, to shut her down, to show any sign that the last 28 years had meant something. Instead, Mom looked away, and Dad suddenly became very interested in his plate. "Say something," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Tell her she's wrong." Mom's response shattered whatever illusions I had left. Maybe it's time we all acknowledge certain realities. Realities? I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Blood is blood, Sarah," Dad added, not meeting my eyes. "We care about you, but Emma, she's our daughter." "And what am I?" No one answered. The silence said everything. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I see. Well, thank you for finally being honest." "Don't be dramatic." Emma rolled her eyes. "You've always known you were different." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Mom called after me, "Sarah, don't leave like this. We can talk about it." "Talk about what?" "How I was never really your daughter. How you used me as a placeholder until you could have Emma." "That's not fair," Dad protested. "No, what's not fair is pretending to love someone for 28 years and then deciding blood matters more than everything else." I walked out that night and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, they sent me a text asking for help with their mortgage payment. Emma had decided to enroll in graduate school, and they co-signed her loans. I deleted the message without responding. Over the next few months, I watched from a distance as their financial situation deteriorated. They put everything they had into supporting Emma's latest whim, and now the house they'd lived in for 30 years was about to be foreclosed. That's when I made my decision. Working through a shell company, I bought their house at auction. They never knew it was me. I let them stay as tenants, charging below market rent through a property management company. I told myself it was just a good investment, but deep down, I couldn't let them end up homeless. even after everything. But now, watching them break into my other property, my actual home, I realized some people never change. They'd found out through Emma's new boyfriend, who worked at the county records office, that I owned several properties in the area. Somehow, they'd gotten a copy of my house key, and here they were, acting like they had any right to take what was mine. The security footage continued to record as they entered my house. Emma immediately started taking selfies in my living room. This place is so much nicer than that dump we're renting. Can you believe she lives here while we're struggling? Mom was running her hands over my furniture, already mentally redecorating. We'll have to get rid of all this modern stuff. It's so cold, so... Her. Dad was checking out my home office. Look at all this. She's been successful while we've been barely getting by. After everything we did for her. I watched them move through my house, claiming spaces, making plans, acting like they had any right to be there. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Surprise. We're moving in with you. It's only fair since we're family, right? Oh wait. The laughter I heard through the security feed made my blood boil. They thought they had won something, thought they could just take what was mine because they shared blood with each other, but not with me. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. Remember that property management company that handles my rental? The one where my family lives. I need you to send them an eviction notice. Immediately. On what grounds? Check the lease agreement. No unauthorized copying of keys or attempts to access other properties owned by the landlord. They just broke into my house. I have it all on video. That's grounds for immediate termination of their lease. Do you want to give them the standard 30 days? I watched as Emma posed for another selfie in my kitchen. No, 24 hours, and send a copy of the eviction notice to the house they're currently breaking into. They should receive it any minute now. I hung up and waited. Sure enough, within minutes, I heard the notification sound from my security feed as my lawyer's email arrived on Emma's phone. The look on their faces as they read the eviction notice was priceless. This has to be a mistake, Mom stammered, her face pale. Wait, Dad was reading more carefully now. The owner of our rental property, it's her. She's our landlord. Emma was frantically scrolling through the document. She can't do this. We're family. I picked up my phone one last time and sent a text to their group chat. Actually, I'm not family. I'm just some stranger's kid, remember? You have 24 hours to vacate both properties. Blood is blood, right? Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and watched through the security feed as my family, no, not my family, just the people who raised me, realized exactly what they had lost. The next few hours were chaos. They tried calling me repeatedly, left voicemails ranging from angry threats to tearful apologies. Emma's messages became increasingly desperate. You can't do this to us. We'll sue you. Please, we have nowhere to go. But I remembered another time when someone had nowhere to go, when they'd thrown me away because I wasn't blood, when they'd chosen Emma over me time and time again. The difference was I had worked hard, saved my money, and built something for myself. They had squandered everything on Emma's whims. I watched them leave my house, shoulders slumped, faces shocked. They'd come in like conquerors and left like trespassers. As they drove away, I finally turned my phone back on. One last text from Mom caught my eye. We were wrong. Please don't do this. We need you. I typed out my response carefully. No, what you need is to learn that blood isn't thicker than water when the blood is toxic. You have 23 hours left to vacate your rental property. Don't forget to leave the keys. Then I blocked their numbers, poured another glass of wine, and started making plans to change all my locks. Sometimes the family you're born into, or in my case, adopted into, isn't the family you deserve. And sometimes the best revenge is simply letting them face the consequences of their own actions. I had built this life for myself, despite them, not because of them. And now they would learn exactly what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. The next morning, I arrived at their rental property, my property, exactly 24 hours after serving the eviction notice. I wasn't surprised to find them still there, surrounded by half-packed boxes and chaos. What did surprise me was the small crowd gathered on the front lawn. Aunts, uncles, and family friends, all summoned by my parents for what was clearly meant to be an intervention. Aunt Mary stepped forward as I got out of my car. Sarah, honey, you can't do this to your family. Family? I smiled coolly. I thought we established that blood is what makes a family. Isn't that right, Mom? Mom was standing in the doorway, her eyes red from crying. We made a mistake. We were wrong. Please just give us more time. Like the time you gave me when you decided I wasn't really your daughter. I walked past the crowd, keys in hand. The eviction notice was clear. Time's up. Emma emerged from the house, her face twisted with anger. You vindictive bitch. Do you know what you're doing to us? Actually, I do. I'm treating you exactly how you treated me, like strangers. I turned to address the gathered crowd. Would anyone here let strangers live in their investment property after those strangers broke into their home? After they tried to steal it? Uncle Jim, always the family mediator, stepped forward. Sarah, they've apologized. They know they were wrong about the adoption thing. Do they? I pulled out my phone and played the security footage from yesterday. The crowd fell silent as they heard Mom's voice clearly. She has no real claim to anything anyway. She's not even our blood. The silence that followed was deafening. Some of the relatives shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Even Aunt Mary stepped back, her certainty wavering. That was we didn't mean, Mom stuttered. Yes, you did. I cut her off. You meant every word, just like you meant it when you told me I wasn't your real daughter. Just like you meant it every time you chose Emma over me. Dad finally spoke up, his voice gruff. We made mistakes, but this isn't the answer. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Just like it wasn't your problem when you let Emma tell me I wasn't real family. Emma surged forward suddenly, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, okay? I was jealous. You were always so perfect, so capable. It was easier to push you away than admit I was failing. For a moment, I almost wavered. Then I remembered her smirking face in my kitchen yesterday, taking selfies and planning to redecorate my home without my permission. Your jealousy cost me my family, I said quietly. Now it's going to cost you your home. Karma's funny that way. The police cruiser I'd requested pulled up right on schedule. 2 officers stepped out, nodding to me. Ms. Mitchell, you called about enforcing an eviction. Yes, officer. They were served notice yesterday after breaking into my other property. In it, I was maybe 6 years old, sitting next to 4-year-old Emma on a park bench. We were both laughing, ice cream smeared across our faces, Mom and Dad standing behind us with genuine smiles. We looked happy. We looked like a real family. I slipped the photo into my pocket, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but as a reminder of why I'd had to do this. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from our own family, and sometimes the greatest strength lies in walking away. My phone buzzed again. A message from the security company about changing the locks on both properties. I confirmed the appointment, then took one last look around the empty house. Tomorrow it would be just another property in my portfolio. Today it was the end of a chapter I never thought I'd have to write. As I locked up and walked to my car, I noticed Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor who'd lived next door for as long as I could remember, watching from her porch. You know, she called out, I never liked how they treated you. Always favoring Emma, always making excuses. You did the right thing, dear. I smiled at her, the first genuine smile I'd managed all day. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. Sometimes the right thing feels like the hardest thing. That's how you know what's right, she nodded sagely. Family isn't about blood. It's about who treats you like you matter. I drove away from the house that had never really been my home, leaving behind the ghosts of a family that had never really been mine. Ahead of me lay a future I had built for myself, brick by brick, investment by investment. They had taught me I wasn't family. I had taught them that actions have consequences. Now we all had to live with the lessons learned. A week after the eviction, I was sitting in my office reviewing property listings when my assistant buzzed in. Ms. Mitchell, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your grandmother. Grandma Rose. The only person from my adoptive family who had always treated me exactly the same as Emma. I hadn't heard from her since everything happened. She'd been traveling in Europe. Sent her in. She walked in looking exactly as I remembered. Elegant, straight-backed, with eyes that missed nothing. Well, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I come back from a month in Paris to find my family scattered, and you owning half the neighborhood. Want to tell me what happened? I told her everything, the dinner, the cruel words, the break-in attempt, the eviction. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. Those foolish, foolish people, she finally said, shaking her head. Do you know why I never treated you differently from Emma? Because you're a good person? She laughed. Because I was adopted too. I stared at her. In all these years, I'd never known. No one had ever mentioned it. Your grandfather's parents adopted me when I was 6. Back then, people didn't talk about adoption much. But I swore if I ever had a family of my own, blood would never matter. When your parents adopted you, I was so happy. She paused, her voice hardening. I never imagined they'd turn into exactly the kind of people I despised. They're staying with Aunt Marie, I told her. Emma's looking for a job for the first time in years. Good, Grandma Rose nodded. It's about time they all grew up. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. This is why I really came. I've been meaning to give you this for years, but the timing never seemed right. Inside the envelope was a deed. My hands shook as I read it. Grandma, this is the beach house. Your grandfather and I always meant for it to be yours. Not because you weren't blood, but because you were the only one who ever appreciated it, who sat with him for hours while he taught you about investments and property values. The beach house, a beautiful property worth well over $1 million. The place where I'd spent every summer growing up, learning about real estate from Grandpa while Emma complained about being bored. I can't accept this. It's not a gift, dear. It's your inheritance. Has been since your grandfather added you to the deed 10 years ago. I'm just finally giving you the paperwork. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom's having anxiety attacks. Dad's drinking again. I hope you're happy with what you've done to this family. I showed the message to Grandma Rose. She read it and snorted. Still making everything about them, I see. Show me that security footage again. The one from when they broke in. I played it for her. When she heard Mom's comment about blood, her face hardened into something I'd never seen before. Sarah, she said quietly, I need you to do something for me. Get your lawyer on the phone. An hour later, everything was arranged. Grandma Rose had transferred every property she owned, including the family's beloved summer cabin, into my name. They want to make this about blood, she said, signing the last document. Fine. Let's make it about blood. My adopted blood is just as good as theirs. They'll be furious, I warned her. Good. Maybe fury will finally teach them what they've lost. She stood up, straightening her jacket. Now I believe you owe me lunch, and you can tell me about these investment properties you've been acquiring. Over lunch, my phone kept buzzing with messages from family members who'd heard about Grandma Rose's decision. Most were angry. Some were threatening legal action. One was from Mom, just 2 words. Please stop. They still don't get it, do they? Grandma Rose said, reading the messages over my shoulder. This isn't about punishment. It's about consequences. I never wanted their money, I told her. I just wanted to be family. I know, dear, but sometimes the family we're given isn't the family we deserve. Sometimes we have to build our own. She raised her glass. To blood. May it be thinner than integrity, weaker than character, and less important than love. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling, for the first time since this all began, that I hadn't just lost a family. I found out who my real family was all along. As we finished lunch, Grandma Rose handed me one last envelope. Your grandfather wrote this for you before he died. Said to give it to you when you finally stood up for yourself. Inside was a single line. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. You've always been my true heir. I folded the note carefully and put it in my wallet. Tomorrow, I would deal with the lawyers, the angry relatives, the consequences of today's decisions. But right now, sitting across from the grandmother who had chosen me just as surely as I had finally chosen myself, I was exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes the family you lose shows you the family you've had all along. 1 year later, I stood on the deck of the beach house, my beach house, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. Grandma Rose sat beside me, sipping her evening tea, a content smile on her face. Have you heard from them? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Emma got married last month, I said. Small ceremony at Aunt Marie's house. They sent an invitation. Did you go? I shook my head. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Some shouldn't be. The past year had been transformative. My property management company had expanded, now handling luxury rentals up and down the coast. The house I'd evicted them from had been renovated and sold for a substantial profit. Life had moved on, just as it always does. Mom still sent occasional messages, birthday cards, Christmas greetings, careful words that never quite addressed the real issues. Dad had stopped drinking and found a job at a local hardware store. Emma, surprisingly, had finally grown up. She was working as a teacher's assistant, living within her means for the first time in her life. They changed, Grandma Rose observed. They had to, I replied. Nobody else was going to pay their bills anymore. A car pulled up in the driveway, my fiancé Michael returning from his conference. He'd been the unexpected gift in all of this, a real estate lawyer I'd met while handling the property transfers. He'd seen me at my worst, dealing with the family fallout, and loved me anyway. Ladies, he called out, joining us on the deck. Beautiful evening. Grandma Rose patted his hand. Perfect evening for some news, I'd say. I smiled, touching the small bump that was just beginning to show. We're having a girl. A girl. Grandma Rose's eyes filled with tears. Your grandfather would have been so proud. We're naming her Rose, Michael said. After the woman who showed us what real family means. Grandma dabbed at her eyes. You know they'll hear about this. They'll try to be part of her life. I know, I said quietly, but my daughter will grow up knowing she's loved for exactly who she is, not for her blood, not for what she can give, but for herself. She'll have quite the inheritance, Michael added, gesturing to the view. She'll have more than that, I corrected him. She'll have the truth, about family, about love, about standing up for yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Heard about the baby. Mom's crying. Can we talk? I showed it to Grandma Rose, who shook her head. Some people only reach out when they want something. The question is, what do you want? I thought about it, really thought about it. About the little girl growing inside me. About the family I wanted her to have. About the lessons I wanted her to learn. I want her to know her history, I said finally. But I don't want her to repeat it. I typed out a response. The baby isn't a chance to fix the past. If you want to be in her life, you'll have to accept that the old family dynamics died the day you decided blood was all that mattered. I'm not that person anymore, and my daughter will never be made to feel like she's less than anyone else. Emma's reply came quickly. I understand. We all do now. Too late maybe, but we do. Not too late to learn, I wrote back. Just too late to go back. Michael wrapped his arm around me as the last rays of sun disappeared below the horizon. Grandma Rose raised her teacup in a silent toast. To your daughter, she said. May she never question her place in this family. To family, I added. The one we choose, the one we build, the one we deserve. As darkness settled over the beach, I felt my daughter kick, a tiny reminder that family isn't about the past. It's about the future we create. My hand rested on my belly, feeling her movements, and I made her a silent promise. You will never know what it feels like to be less than. You will never question your place. You will be loved completely and unconditionally, not because of blood, but because of who you are. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about breaking the cycle and building something better from the ashes of what was lost.